Hey everybody, Victoria here with the ETMN EdTech Mentorship Network, and tonight we are going to be having Jeremy Insco going through Evernote for educators with us. Tonight Jeremy's going to be just doing a quick overview of the Evernote app and some of the associated apps with it, and then tomorrow, or not tomorrow, on Wednesday we're going to be going over a few more extras for educators and students. The format of the show is 2 Google Hangouts, so they're roughly half an hour to 40 minutes each. And we're just going to go over some of that stuff. Tonight we're at 8 p.m. On at 8 p.m. Pacific time, and Wednesday we're on at 8 p.m. Pacific time as well. If you want to follow us on the podcast live today, we have a Q&A feature on the side on the event page, or you can get at us on Twitter at #ETMN. You can also send us a message on the Google Plus community, and we'll be happy to get back at you there. So without further ado, Jeremy, if you want to get started today.
Right. Okay. So I guess we're cutting introduction short. We've done this a few times. People more or less know me, I think. But for those who don't, grade 6-7 teacher. Then I'm a Ladysmith School District and a recent graduate of UBC's Master of Educational Technology program. So all this stuff is right up my alley. And Evernote is actually something that has helped me immensely through that degree. And my wife in university as well, using it on the same account. Although recent updates have allowed multiple accounts on the same computer, so we haven't done that. But if you're in that situation, I recommend you do. So Evernote, those not familiar with it, it is just a wonderful, awesome program. I think that it might best be compared to Google Drive as a suite of apps, or I don't know if apps is even the right description for it. It's a kind of your one-stop digital portfolio and organizer for all those things that you have on your desk. I mean, if I look around my desk right now, I've got all kinds of papers and things that are paper put together. I've got Post-its, I've got to-do lists, I've got just random papers, and Evernote kind of is your digital version of that desk, organized, unlike my desk. So yeah, it keeps everything all together. But the one difference it has, an advantage perhaps over Google Drive, is that it handles multiple types of media within one note or file, rather than saying, okay, here's your files, and listing it like you'd be on your hard drive. We're talking about Evernote. We organize notes into notebooks and up the hierarchy into stacks. We'll talk a little about that shortly. But within a note, we can have multiple file types, and that's what's not in Google Drive. So I use them both. I Drive extensively and Evernote less now because I don't have that need as a student. But professionally, I am moving towards it more as well because of the advantages that I'll talk about. Partly, big advantage being just professional organization. You've got a place where everything is of all types. At the same time, big use, student use, to get technology into the hands of students and using it. It's a very powerful platform for running student portfolios. Cool. That's a future plan for sure that I have, and I've looked into it and dabbled with it a little bit this year, and hopefully in the near future I'll be going in much more depth for my own class using digital portfolios through Evernote.
Awesome, and this is all stored in the cloud too, right? So that's a big time feature of a lot of these applications we've been talking about on ETMN, is that they're all cloud featured technologies that you can access on multiple devices.
Yeah, I mean that's something we don't even. I mean, I take it for granted now. I've been using these apps for a couple of years, and it's just so second nature to have things saved in the cloud and across multiple devices. So a great part of Evernote as well, that it runs on your PC or Mac, it runs on your tablet, it runs on your iOS or Android phone or Moleskine phone for that matter, and it's just always there, and the platform is similar across them. I like the view personally on the iPad versus my iPhone versus on my iMac. Obviously an Apple person. But I tend to be on the Mac more for those times that I'm using it. So it all works and it all transfers, and it's quite useful.
Yeah, and that's definitely a useful thing for kids that might have different types of devices at school, or teachers too, who have maybe different type of device from their work device over to their personal devices as well. So very, very useful feature there that I know it comes second nature to some people who are power users, but to a lot of folks that are new to apps like this, they're not used to that piece. So.
Right, so why don't we jump right in and take a look. I'll get the screen share going here. We'll try to.
Cool. And what are you starting out with showing us then?
The Mac version.
Okay. So the Mac version is actually an installable app. It's a little applet that you have to download and install, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll let me share that. These things lag a little bit. Okay. So we've discovered on these podcasts that podcasting and screen sharing and running multiple apps at the same time sometimes slows things down. I think all our computers tend to be a lot faster than what might be seen initially. So bear with us.
So I can see your screen share now, Jer.
Okay, great. So here's the basic layout, and you see I've got a number of notebooks. And the ones with a white bar across them are stacks. So just like a paper analogy, if we want to create notes, those notes can go inside a notebook. And if, say, your subject is related, or your topic is related, you can stack up notebooks all in one pile, for example. So the ones with the white bar across it, and you see my wife's nursing notes are there, and some of my teaching notes, and my master's courses notebooks are all in a stack at the same time. There's some, actually there's nothing in assignments right now, but I've got a couple of notes for blog and Twitter posts, education technology notes, those are there, and some home things that it's pretty empty. But those are all there. So let's take a look. If I go into, for example, home notes, because I know what's there, and open up that notebook, there's 3 notes. So if I double click, that helps. And you see some pretty basic things. One of the most basic uses of Evernote is to create to-do lists. It's very simple when we create a note. We see an old one for me here. It's quite honestly one I used one time, but creating a checkbox is really simple. It's a matter of, if I start here, there's literally a checkbox icon. You push it, just like creating a bulleted list or a numbered list. It's there, and we can type into it, create it, hit enter, return, and you get another checkbox. Cool thing about this in editing, you've got a few options. It's not as simple as notes, for example, in iOS, where you really can only do text. Here, you'll see that I can adjust the font. There's a reasonable selection of fonts. You can adjust the size, bold, italic, underline, change the color, highlight. Those are all options. We can throw in bulleted list, numbered list, checkboxes, and horizontal dividers if we need to. Change the alignment, and one powerful thing that takes some tweaking to do in Google Drive, in a Google document, is to throw in a table within a Google Doc. So there's an advantage there. That's quite clear. And I won't bother throwing in right now. What you do also see here is this little microphone. You can take voice notes. This has a super powerful application, especially when we talk about student portfolios. It's one to take your own voice notes and memos, but another to make voice note comments on student work. I've experimented with a little bit and find that it takes me forever to give written feedback to students. It makes it so it's not timely, and feedback should be timely and helpful. That way, I can do that verbally much faster. So if I add a voice note on top of a student piece, they can get feedback right away. The other part being, often students being students, often won't read. They'll see a grade, a number, a letter grade, a percentage, and that's all they'll see. And to go and read the written comments that I leave, unlikely to happen, unfortunately, despite the amount of time that I put in. If it's a sit and just listen to me gab for a minute, that's far more likely to happen, especially because my writing is not necessarily all that legible. Expanding on what we can do inside a note, there's more grayed out options up across the top of this bar. We can set a reminder. So just like in in your calendar or in many other apps, we get a reminder to send you an audible cue and a pop-up. It'll also send you an email if you choose that option. And for me, I know email is actually becoming kind of passé. I don't tend to use it, and I get so swamped with so much junk mail that things get lost very easily. So it's not very helpful for me in that way, but the pop-up is. So I can click that button there, and it'll allow me to add a date to this. And you can click it again to remove it. So I can mark it as done, or clear the reminder, or add. So I'm just going to clear that reminder. I'm just thinking how I'm going to apply that. This next one is to annotate, because Evernote is quite powerful. If I go and drag and drop an image, let's see what's just randomly on my desktop. There is. Let's move things away.
Just to let you know, as you're looking for that, Jer,
Sure.
Josh is asking a question, he's watching tonight, about audio files, and he says that he would record himself speaking in a note, but whenever he went to go view that note online, it would download the file and be some kind of strange file type. Have you had any experience with that viewing and downloading aspect, or no?
No, it's worked well for me.
Okay.
So that's odd and unfortunate. So there's, although Josh brings up another good point here, one thing, very powerful part of notes here, and I can add that. Let me just create a new note. So to do so, there's obviously a big button at the top that says new note in the home note, so it tells you where it's putting it. And if you do here, you can put it in other places as well, some of the recent notebooks you've used. So I'll just click that, create a new note, and from there it says untitled. So I go to that. Kids at the beach. On my desktop, the image that I found first was literally a picture of my kids on the beach last winter. And so
in the winter, because we're Canadian, so we have to put that out there, that kids are on the beach in the winter. The sunny beaches of Canada.
This is a BC thing, right? So you see my kids and the mittens and the driftwood and logs, but we can take this annotate, and I want to annotate the image. You can annotate an entire note as a PDF as an advanced feature, but the image is fine just like that as well. So as we wait for that to load, okay, so it gives you some pointers as you go along when you don't do things very often. No, I just want to annotate that. Let me do that. All right, so left-hand side, you've got arrows, so I can bring attention to my son's mittens there. I put 2 arrows by accident, so let's see if I can delete that one. So yeah, there's my son's mittens. My daughter. Don't know what she's looking at there. But there's all kinds of options for flags as well. So mostly for important in documents. So I can put a little stamp there because I love my kids. Lots of options for annotating. So if we're looking at documents or pictures, annotating them is certainly an option we can do. And I'll back that out. As I said, we can do. Of course, I didn't save it, so I didn't save those annotations. Well, what's going on? Oh, it did save it. Excellent.
Is it like Google Drive where everything saves automatically, or do you have to actually click the save button?
I find it a little bit slower. I don't know if you can see in the bottom left-hand corner it says syncing right now. I find it a little bit slower, so it's not as instant, and you don't see it as obvious at the top where it says everything is saved in Google Drive. Mm-hmm. But you can. So you can add multimedia types. I can also go and record a sound clip, which I don't think is going to work through a podcast as well. But I can push the button and show you what it looks like.
Yeah, that would be good.
with the
I
option.
think it might mess up the your mic feed to the Google Hangout, so I wouldn't actually
Yeah,
go
I'm
press
not going to actually record it, but you see it. You see how simple it is, and you've got that feedback bar at the top there to adjust your microphone volume, and you record it, save it, or not, and I'll choose not and cancel that. But that's what I mean about having multiple media types within one note. It's there, and much more comprehensive than in Google Drive.
Right.
So you can probably start to see some applications across.
Right. Is it true too that
Um,
you can actually search if there is text in your image? Is it true that you can search for, or is that like something you're sharing later?
no, it's something that's on my list to get to. So now's a good time. OCR, or optical character recognition, is embedded at 2 levels in Evernote. So one being if you can scan, you can literally scan by taking a picture, and it's got decent OCR that can go in and recognize the text typed. Written text doesn't work nearly as well. In fact, I wouldn't even recommend it. So if you're taking pictures of printed text, no problem.
So
Or
that's
typed text.
optimal character recognition, and
Optical.
optical.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. That's really neat.
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
about
that's
that.
what OCR stands for.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of an old term that I remember my first handheld scanner that I'd have to scan down half a page because it's only 5 inches wide, and scan down the other half of the page, then merge them together, and then it would go through and have like an 80% was full. I may as well just typed it for all the time it took generally to get a page of text. But this does a much better job.
Yeah, it's just kind of a neat concept because people have, I don't know, save a lot of images and then sometimes have trouble finding those things, particularly in this digital age of actually like having PDF copies of books or things like that. I know a lot of my kids take photos of text and read the text and record their voice, so that could be a helpful way to find their work if they're not using proper nomenclature or things like that.
Right, so let me get right into that. That's a great segue. So if you're looking for your work and finding it, hopefully you've got some sort of organization happening to your notes and notebooks and stacks. But if you don't, it's easier to find in the folksonomy. And folksonomy is a fancy word for tagging things. So Evernote allows you to tag. So I click to add a tag here, and I can write kids. Or I can write my kids' names. It doesn't matter. Interesting. So I've now just tagged kids, and I can just keep on going with other tags. So kids. If I throw my kids' names in there, I can show you another thing a little bit later here. My daughter Kinsey and son Reed. Oops. Let me do that as 2 tags. That didn't work. Kinsey. Oh. Let's try this. Now that I've created a tag called Kinsey Reed, I want separate ones. One too fast. Reed. And Kinsey. Just Kinsey, not Kinsey Reed. There we go. Okay, I've got all 3, finally. So I've got all those. So we'll go back and look at tags shortly, but there's one way. So we can search all our notes at the top and find anything that's tagged those, and that'll pop up. So there's one of the features that is super useful. I mean, I tag everything I use. When I'm searching online and saving, I save with social bookmarks, and everything gets tagged, and I can go back and find them. So that's super helpful, and especially if you've got some organization. And we'll talk about organizing your tags probably more tomorrow than today because there'll be specific use for them. But tags are a way to find everything quickly and easily. What else can I tell you about this here? This basic layout shows me all the notes in the home notes notebook, but I can change the way that layout is. If I don't like that, I can have this card view. I can have the expanded view where it's just the little versions of them. I think, so I'm in card view right now. I can go to snippet view. Does that help? Or is that just lag? So there's a little bit of text as well in that. I find I like the card view best. so I tend to leave it there. It takes up the least amount of space on the sidebar.
Yeah, there's a little bit of lag, like when you're speaking and when you're clicking, so it took a sec for that. So it's kind of like tile versus list kind of view, right?
Yeah, and there's a few of them. It's something you can play with to see what your preference is. As I said, my preference is this view because the tile is small and I've got more room for the notes. But that's, like I said, that's your option. The one more, if you put the top list view, and I'll give it a second here. That's another way. Okay, there's some pop-up helpers there. There's another way to get more screen space, and you can adjust that. So I can minimize the top if I move that bar. Now the names of my notes are much smaller, and I've got lots more space to actually work in the note itself and in the scroll bar.
Right. But then no imagery then either, right?
Right. So I mean, if you're a text-based person, that works well. If not, then it doesn't work well for me. I'll go back to card view. The next thing I wanted to show was the fact that in the modern age we're collaborating all the time. So this little thing, I don't know, it looks like kind of like a calculator with an arrow up. If you click there, this is to share notes. So you can work collaboratively in two ways. You can share with individuals, and if I click on that, you have the option to share via email. And then preferences there. So individuals who join can either view notes, modify and invite others. So there's 3 different levels of sharing there. And you can add the description or a note to say what you're doing there.
Right.
I'm not going to share that at the moment.
Is that a real-time collaborative thing too, like Google Docs, or is it a little different experience?
You know what? I've never tried it. To be honest, I've never needed to collaborate through this. I've always used the docs for those, but that's something that I would like to spend more time sharing on. So, not the 100% expert on Evernote, but it is a tool I found useful. So, I wanted to share it.
Excellent. Okay, well that'd be cool. If somebody knows anything about that, then share it with us, please, because that's what I'm curious about. Because it seems like there's some really cool functionalities that could be useful for more personal stuff. Like I use my Notes app on my phone. I don't actually turn to Google Docs a whole lot for just quick stuff, but this seems like it could be more useful for some of the things that I already do and pay for apps. Like I've paid for to-do list apps and things like that. So.
Yeah, if you're a person who does take a lot of notes and makes a lot of lists, this is incredible. The functionality that's there for free, and everything we're showing for free is for free here today. The one thing I did want to say, the optical character recognition that we talked about before, the second level of that is to scan PDFs. So if you take an image-only PDF that there's text in it, it will scan the text and make it searchable. So you can search PDFs through Evernote that way, but there's $5-6 a month or $45 a year for the extended version. That's the big feature you get, if that's something you use a lot. If not, then there's not a lot of point to pay. The other option being the amount of storage, and Evernote is unique with the way they provide storage. Usually you get so many gigabytes of storage total with cloud-based devices. Evernote works on throughput, so they actually have a very small amount. They say you get 60 megabytes a month. So as long as you're not doing major picture work, you're probably fine, because most of it's text, right? You're not going to have a lot of information that actually goes through that takes up a lot of memory. So you get 60 megabytes per month, and it shows you. Let's skip that public link there. If you click up top left here and go into the account info, it shows that I've used 7 megabytes this month.
So just to double check, you said that I'm just going to go back to the optical character recognition. The images scanning is free, but the PDFs are paid. Yeah. So it won't. If you have the free version, you can still put PDFs in here, but it won't be able to search the text. So if you want to search for keywords or whatever, or phrases, whatever in your PDFs, you can't do that through this without having the paid version. Okay. And then
the other part being, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, but the store. You can finish that thought. I'm going to ask you about the storage space in a sec.
Oh, that's where I was going. So I've used 7 megabytes this month so
Right.
far, and actually that picture is probably 5 of them that I just put on right now because I was
Right. Right.
under,
Right.
I was down to about a meg before that. So you get 60 megs. It shows how much you've got, um, and just it resets in 18 days. And
Right.
so the premium you get a meg.
So,
But I mean the list is there. You can read it.
okay. So you end up
Sorry.
just. So you end up just kind of like you start with this much space, and then after you're a user for a month, you add, and then you add, and then you add. Or is it just
Yeah.
like you're allowed to? So you're allowed to use. You said 60 megs per month for free.
Yeah, you're allowed to put 60 megs into it for free a month.
Right. So then technically
And like
you
I
could
said,
just keep adding a little bit by little bit, and soon you'd have like gigs of storage space.
you would. You would. Right, it's upload time, right? It's not total storage,
Cool. Interesting.
which is a unique way of doing it. I haven't seen anything else that does it.
Yeah, that's just bizarre because
But
most of the things it's like if you have like on Google Drive you have 15 gigs and once you use your 15 gigs you're done, right? Like then you're paying.
Yeah,
So it's just
right.
interesting.
Yeah, it's very unique. I don't know if that's a real selling point for a lot of people or this company, but it seems to work, and there's an option. What I wanted to show next, while we're on this account info screen, there's an email address. You see, when you get this, you get an email address. So Jeremy and Scope 41D2B at m.evernote.com. So weird address, right? But I throw it in my address book. It's saved there. And if I ever want to email myself a note, I can do that. So I can take a screenshot and email it to that email address. It'll automatically create a note. If I back out to my notebooks again, and I right-click on, I guess, Home Notes, it gives me the option to, oh, maybe it's not there, in the settings here, sorry, a little cog. I can make this my default notebook. So anything that I email to myself would automatically go to the default notebook. Also, there's options and extensions in Chrome that you can use a web clipper. We'll talk about that, I guess, tomorrow. We're going to be actually running out of time here tonight. It'll automatically go to that notebook. So there's a reason to have a default notebook. It doesn't make a lot of sense otherwise, but that's where I found that the default notebook is helpful because when you're sending things to Evernote randomly, you'll see that it goes there, and otherwise it's harder to find. The other options we'll talk about that make the student portfolios super powerful is that in the email address, in the subject line, you can put an actual folder name. So the last word of the last part of the subject line is your user, or sorry, the folder name or notebook name, sorry, and then you can actually put hashtags and tag things. So if the tag already exists and the folder already exists, when you email something, it will be routed to the right spot and tagged the right way. So you can have students creating work and sending it to a shared Evernote folder because, as I said, you can share these folders that they can access and they can see. Parents can access and see, and it's all tagged and searchable and findable really quickly.
Interesting.
I will change that. One of the things I wanted to show you with tags, and we'll get into different, we say there's kids, and then we say it highlights when I did kids, I also used Kinsey and Reed, so those ones popped up. Neat thing is I can actually nest my tags. So Kinsey is in kids, and Reed is now in kids. So my tags are nested. In this view, just listing my tags, it doesn't make up a lot of sense, right? But if I go back to notes and pretend that I didn't put those tags there, I can start to type kids, those, and I left it too quickly. The other options pop up, so you'll be able to sort through your tags very quickly, which if you have a structure for your tags, that would facilitate moving a lot faster, so your productivity can go up.
Right. So, for example, if you're a blogger and you blog about many different issues, but say you type in the blog tag and underneath that you have PLN, Twitter, screencasting, movie, like video, whatever, all of those options would pop up and you can just check off the ones you want to use?
Absolutely.
Cool. That is a neat feature.
Yeah. What other features can I jump up to tonight? You can present them. There's a full screen presentation mode as well, so you can turn this into a kind of a PowerPoint or presentation viewer as well. There's an option, but I think that we might just kind of end there and talk a little bit more tomorrow, because we'll talk about some of the extensions. Web Clipper is one that comes is an Evernote extension. Sketch is an Evernote extension. Penultimate is another extension, and maybe I'll give a quick description of those first. Web Clipper literally is to clip things, either text or pictures or both or whole web pages, into a note, so you can view those offline later. So it's like a Pocket or a Read Later type app, but it's in your notes and there and searchable and taggable and very useful that way.
It's digital printing, really.
Yeah, it is. Sketch is an app that you'd use on an iPad, for example, or on the tablet, that does the annotation very similar to what I showed you with the pictures of my kids there. All the same options there and a couple more as a standalone app. So you can take the pictures you've got and annotate them, and then they're also automatically saved as a note in your default notebook or wherever you reroute it to in all your in Evernote, whichever platform you're using it on. So you can annotate pictures and it's already there. Penultimate is a writing app with text recognition, and so if you're using a stylus and you can actually write notes. Evernote has their own, has one of the best styluses available for tablets. It's super fine and quite legible, and then they've got the text recognition in that, so you can write notes, handwrite notes, and convert it to text. Peek is a feature that takes your notes and uses them as flashcards for studying, so it's a student use. And then we'll talk about a couple other extensions that work well tomorrow. So with that, I think it's probably best to wrap it up, because the next thing I think is to go into more detail for specific purposes. But there's, I think, a decent overview of what Evernote is. We've taken a look at what the notes, notebooks, and tags and stacks are. One thing that is, I guess, on the main screen page here is on this top left-hand side, it says your recent notes and shortcuts. You can drag a note to the shortcuts and it's always on that list until you remove it. So if you're working on 2 or 3 projects continually, you might want to drag them to the shortcuts so you don't have to go into your notebooks and find your UBC MET courses. And then I think that assignment was in ETech 512, and then in there I've got 8 more notebooks, or 8 more notes, so which is the one that I want to look for. You can drag the one you're working on into the recent notes or the shortcuts area that's there. So the past stuff is not so much in the way of drilling down to what you want.
That's definitely a helpful feature for those people who kind of have things they're always working on, or maybe a notebook even that they're always kind of working away at. So.
Well, yeah, you might have that constant to-do list that you're constantly updating. You might tag things with a time-based of tagging something to do now, tomorrow, soon, later, someday. You might want the now to be there and visible, and so you can click on that, and this is your reminder for the end of the day. Make sure you're checking this list before you go home at the end of the day, or whatever your workflow is.
Yeah.
I do want to mention a web page or two. The secureweapon.org, or sorry, the secret weapon, not secure weapon, the secretweapon.org is a productivity workflow website based all around Evernote. And I use some of the ideas in there for my work. It's more for a business type professional, their workflow method, but there's some great tips in there that's certainly all focused on Evernote, so I recommend that. for sure, to take a view on that one, and I'll pop that up as well. And we will also look next time, I believe, at If This Then That. Victoria was nice enough to explain that one to me a number of months ago, and since then I found all kinds of uses for it, and there's all kinds of uses that tie into Evernote, so I'll like to explore a couple of those next time.
All right, well, thank you, Jeremy, very much for outlining what you have shown us tonight. Very much appreciated. If you want to check out part 2 of Evernote with Educators, or for Educators with Jeremy, you can tune in on Wednesday, June 11th at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we will be going through some of those more specifics then. We also have a couple other upcoming interviews in the next couple weeks, so we will be announcing those on Wednesday evening. So for those of you watching live, thanks for joining us, and those watching later, hope you enjoyed the podcast. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.